This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back. Corine, Patti joining us here, our Reiki Master Energy Wise Wellness. That's the name of the company. And she's also a mental health therapist. She does a lot. And we're excited for her to join us today to talk about all the modalities she uses to help people. And as a clinical social worker, mental health therapist, gosh, there's so much more. A certified clinical trauma professional. She really has a take on, helping people and in so many different ways. So please introduce yourself. Tell everyone hello this morning. Thank you.
Hello this morning. Thank you. Yes. So my name's Corine Patti. I am a clinical social worker and an energy alchemist, right? I help people to transmute energy for their higher good and such. So energy-wise wellness brings into alignment the physical, mental, and spiritual or energetic parts of ourselves and brings them into divine alignment by healing all the different parts of ourselves. So, yes, that's what I'm all about. And you can always reach me at my website, energywisewellness.com, for more information. I'll link you to my Psychology Today as well.
Perfect. Thank you
So,
so much. And I know you're a local. She's from the island. That's the island of Long Island here in New York, wherever you're listening. But she can help you in so many different ways all over. So, what did you have in mind for us today? No, we're going to let spirit take the wheel, as you said.
yes. Yes. So today we're going to talk about the ego versus the higher self, peeling
Okay.
away the layers of the onion, right? We spoke about
Mm-hmm.
this onion where our higher self is within. And we're going to talk about today how the ego kind of puts these different layers on us and how we can heal and reveal our true selves underneath there.
Well, how do we find our true selves? Where do we even start?
Right, right. So let's start with when we're born. I think that's a good place to start.
Okay.
So we talked about the conditioning and the programming. And when we're born, we're kind of fresh, right? We're fresh into this world. Spirits comes into a new body, and we're there to we can be molded at that point, you know. So that's why when we were talking in the last podcast about nurturing our children's gifts, we really want to see what our children's gifts are as they're growing in their childhood because they're so much more connected to spirit than we are. We've already been bogged down by society and life and our perceptions and the ego for years. So we already kind of have these layers on. They might not. I mean, they may have brought things in from past lives and things like that, which you also want to be aware of because sometimes kids do remember past lives and there's different documentaries on that. So do your research on that as well. It's so fascinating. So
Mm.
as we grow, as we, come into this world and we have the conditioning, the programming through our families, through society, through our schools, we get this conditioning by the different things that we hear, how we interpret it. We talked about our self-talk and things like that. So so we when that happens, we progress through life, right? And we're trying to figure out who we are. So Freud talks about the id, the ego, and the superego, right? So the id we talked about with kids is kind of like that primal instinct of us, sexual desires, eating, things like that, all the basic kind of things. And it wants instant gratification. It really doesn't have much of a monitor on it. And then the super ego is that those morals that we develop over time and our values and our conscience, right? The difference between right and wrong and all of that. And then the ego, here's the ego trying to kind of mediate between the two. The ego becomes our personality because, as we have different habits, thoughts, and habits and things like that, it just kind of becomes who we are. So the ego, we do need the ego because it's kind of like this negotiator between the different parts of the self and such. So the thing is that the ego becomes very convoluted after a while because the ego uses defense mechanisms to protect itself. So, we get hurt. We maybe feel like it's a dangerous thing. We don't
Yeah.
want to get hurt again. So now maybe we have some type of defense mechanism to protect ourselves. So the ego is meant to protect us in some kind of way, which is great. Sounds like a great thing, right? The issue is that with all these defense mechanisms layering and layering over the years, it really hides who we are inside because now we could be hurt and not want to connect with others because maybe people don't feel that it's safe to, and we feel very separated from each other as well and from ourselves, because think about it, right? We're layering all these pieces of the ego. We're going to be further and further away from our higher selves because the ego kind of distorts who we are. We like to call it the false ego, right? We can have a healthy ego also, but a lot of times these defense mechanisms, they can even turn into mental health issues, and we got to be careful for that, you know.
Absolutely.
So what are some defense mechanisms that come to mind? Let's talk a little bit about the different defense mechanisms that people have.
Oh my gosh. Well, make excuses. Always making excuses. Yeah, I make excuses when I don't want to do something, but I don't say it sometimes. So my defense mechanism is to just lie. Is that bad?
Okay. Okay. I mean, there's not honesty there. So
I
if a
know.
higher value that you have is honesty, and then you're lying, is that your true self or is that your ego?
Yeah, ego, I guess, right? Sometimes I'm scared. Yeah, okay.
But it becomes a habit and it really becomes normalized. And then people don't take accountability, responsibility because they're not aware of it anymore. Sounds like
Mm-hmm.
you're aware of it, which is a great step, to take towards maybe healing that piece of the ego that's maybe no longer serving us. Thank you for protecting me. You're no longer serving me. I'm going to take the risk to be honest about
Mm-hmm.
such and such situation and deal with life as it comes. That
True.
unconditional life acceptance, accepting life in as it comes.
What other defense mechanisms do people usually go into? Denial, like what would you say?
Denial, you know it. Yes, that's
Mm-hmm.
right. That's right. Denial, right? Pretending like it doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't matter. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right, right. A lot of people do this, and they pretend it, and they're not very aware of their behavior, so they're just festering in their ego defense mechanisms, and they're really separating themselves from themselves and others, so projection is a big one, right? So projection is when you project what you're doing onto another person, right? So maybe I didn't take the garbage out. And I say, Jill, you know what? You never take the garbage out.
Yep.
What is going on with you?
Ah,
Things like
yep.
that. So a lot of times you'll see this people that have narcissistic traits or narcissistic personality disorder, they use this projection a lot because they've been protecting their ego for a long time with this inflated ego, right? This big false ego of themselves, and they project it onto people. And a lot of times it turns into this gaslighting situation because you know that you didn't do the thing, but the person is telling you you did the thing, but they did the thing, but then they tell you you're out of your mind because you think this and this, and make it like you're convoluted, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah.
That happens a lot with people. And just because you project doesn't mean that you have narcissistic traits. It's a regular defense mechanism. If it gets out of control, it can become that, you know? So, yeah, so repression, right? Repressing feelings, not dealing with emotions, repressing hurt and pain from your childhood or things like that. Remember, we talked about if we're going to clear and alchemize this energy, it has to come out. We can't shove it down, because when it doesn't get healed, it comes out in our behaviors, is the thing. So now the person's acting a certain way, and something's going on beneath the surface, but it's so repressed that we can't even really tell what the heck it is. you know? So
Mhm.
those are a few defense mechanisms. There's plenty of others that are out there, but do your research for all of that. So once again, life comes, right? We have our perception, getting into the mind and the self-talk and how we're receiving information, how we're interpreting information. And that's going to have an effect on our view of ourselves, on our view of the world. So we come to points in life where we raise our awareness. We talked about this heightened awareness of ourselves, right? From all these things that we weren't aware of that the ego has maybe built over the years. So when we realize what the ego is doing that's not healthy for us, sometimes we have this hurt and this
Yeah.
pain that we've maybe hurt others with our ways. And then we realize that we really hurt ourselves when we hurt others because we're really all connected, you know? So when this type of thing happens and you come to the state of realization, you can come into this ego death. I don't know if you've ever heard of this term before.
No, no, I haven't.
Yes. So it's kind of like that false ego that when you realize that it's happening and you shift your behaviors to alchemize all of that and to heal all of that and to have healthier behaviors, healthy thoughts, healthy actions, things like that, we can dissolve the ego with the higher self. So the ego death really is a shedding of this layer of piece of the onion, right? Remember all these layers that we have built up over the years. So when we have an ego death, we shed a layer or some layers of this onion that we have that's been protecting ourselves for all of these years. So it's almost like a rebirth in a way. And you can have many ego deaths in a lifetime.
Really?
So, because yes, the ego is that intense that there's so many layers of it that you might realize one layer, shed that layer, and cry because of the pain that that piece of the ego has caused, excuse me, right? Because when we peel an onion, when we cut an onion, we cry, right?
I know we
So
do, right?
there's this symbolism going on there as well. So we peel away. So now we have to cry because that's going to be the release of that piece of the ego. We do some type of healing work, going back into that self-love, self-care, coping skills, shifting all of that. So now we are reborn through this realization of the ego that is not serving us, and maybe we adjust it with a healthier sense of the ego, but really delving into peeling away these layers of the ego so we can get to the higher self, right? So Freud talked about, once again, the ego and the super ego. The super ego is that right and wrong, but then Deepak Chopra talks about the super consciousness, which he connects with that Western world calls it the subconscious mind. And he says not to call it subconscious because it's not
Got
subconscious.
it. Got it. It's not
You know what I
sub.
mean?
Get it. Yeah.
It's that right, right. It's a super consciousness. It really knows all. And you can ask your super consciousness different questions. And Deepak Chopra talks about that, who am I? What do I want? Asking yourself certain questions and then seeing it unfold in your life in different ways, finding the answers that way. But then the higher self is really your spirit. It's really
Okay.
your soul, that higher governing essence of self that is all knowing, connected to the divine, and really feeds into love and light. And we want to peel away the layers of the ego to get closer and closer to our higher selves, because the closer we're to our higher selves, the closer we are to the divine, which we're all a
Yeah.
part of and connected through,
I love
you
this.
know
Deep conversation today. For not having like a topic, we're just going off key, and I love it because you're on a roll, and I'm just thinking, and I'm like inspired, and I hope your listeners are getting inspired too about this. Keep going.
Yes. So we want to be compassionate with ourselves during this process, with our self-talk, with our self-love, right? Because it's very easy to guilt and shame ourselves, the way sometimes society has guilt and shamed us. So, feel through the emotions still, let it go, and then have some self-compassion. What might you say to yourself, Jill, if you're being self-compassionate? What would your self-talk be?
What do you mean? Did you say being so compassionate or self-compassionate?
Self-compassion.
I'd be like, the nice, I never do stuff like this, but like it's okay, Jill. Like I have a problem with like getting things done, and I always have piles around the house, and there's anxiety about it. I think I've spoken this
Right.
before, but the
Sure.
compassion would be like, it's okay, Jill. Rome wasn't built in a day. You could do this, and I give myself
Yes.
some love, but I never do. I don't give myself love and light. I give myself anxiety, stress, and like I can't do it, and I'm complaining. I'm calling my sister. I don't have
Right.
time, and I'm
Right.
crying. Like,
Right. Because underneath all of that, you might be doing the what ifs, you
yeah.
know? What if I don't get it done? What if, things like that? And then it might delve into negative core beliefs and
Yeah.
such, right? I don't have this done the way I want it, so then that means that I'm not good enough, and things like that. I'm not saying that that is one of your negative core beliefs, but it
No.
could be. It could be. A lot of people it is. Most of us have that. So really looking at this and thinking about, and I've spoken about this in a previous podcast, it's easier to see it from an objective perspective rather than a subjective perspective, right? We see things from our own little bubble of things from our subjective perspective. So that's why we're not aware of maybe so many things. So we need to kind of zoom out and see ourselves from an objective perspective. That's why when I work with clients, it's easier for me to see what's going on because I'm not coming from their subjective perspective. I'm coming from an outsider point of view that can maybe help them make the connections in their lives that they weren't making before. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. True.
So, yes. So zoom out, take an objective perspective and think about what would I say to someone I loved? What would I say to my best friend? Think about the person that you love the most in the world. Would you talk to them the same way that you talk to yourself?
Yeah. You're right. I don't do that. I would never. Yeah. I don't. You're right.
Right. So this is where the awareness comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's like, 1 second now. That, you feel like this is where, Jill, this is where we lift the veil, right? You know how people want these sayings that we see through rose-colored glasses. You have the veil on, sheep, people following each other blindly without, questioning certain things, without delving into their intuition, which is connected to the higher self and things like that, you
Oh my
know?
gosh. Yeah.
So yes. So we want to be very kind to ourselves and loving and nurture ourselves with unconditional love and allow ourselves to make mistakes because we're supposed to make mistakes because how are we going to learn if we don't make mistakes? We're not perfect beings and we weren't meant to be perfect beings and that's okay, you know?
Learn that in
Yes.
church all the time. Exactly. Try to teach my kids that all these followers, if whether we're Catholic, but of Jesus and the apostles and the ones that, betrayed him and
Right.
sinned him and just like he
Yes.
forgave them. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, no
Right.
one's perfect. Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Jesus
Yeah.
didn't conform, and
No.
church is another great community support, by the way. Jesus didn't conform. Jesus was like, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to do all the things that I came here to do. Jesus believes in himself, even though he was persecuted and even
Hmm.
though he was judged. And you can really relate. We can all relate to this. A lot of people conform because they're scared to be themselves because they don't want to be judged for being weird or something like this, being seen in society as not fitting in a certain box and things. So people don't be themselves. And a lot of times this creates a lot of the layers of the false ego because it's not safe to be yourself, you know? Now, if it's not safe to be yourself, you're going to feel very disconnected from yourself. You judge all these years, people are talking about you, and now you conform to fit into society. And now who are you? Just like everybody else or everybody else's ego, I guess. So we want to shed this and we want to to realize this and to really be ourselves and tap into that divinity of who we are. So we can shine that light that is really who we are, is that
Mm-hmm.
higher self. It's not the ego. The ego is just this mediator trying to deal with life. We're humans, so yes, we have it. Do we need it? Sure, but it needs to be healthy. It can't be this false old, it turns into all sorts of personality disorders and things like that, and mental health issues, anxiety and depression, and all the things. It can really exacerbate mental health, even if, you're born into this life with something. It's that nature nurture piece as well. We're born into this life with things, but what's nurtured, throughout our lives? What's our environment like and things?
Mm-hmm. Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah.
Also, the way, I mean, in life, I just feel like life is so precious, so valuable. Why don't we live our best life and take advantage of this? And everybody, I used to have a mom. I still have a mom, but she passed, and she was a
Yes.
real negative Nancy. She was Debbie Downer. I nicknamed her that, and that's how she was. And it was always
Okay.
negative, negative, negative. Nothing's good enough. The glass is always half empty. And she was miserable. Miserable Michelle was another name I used to call her. And
Okay.
she
Okay.
just never, no matter what I did to try to fix her, she never wanted to fix herself, right? I could
Right.
take her places, show her things, give her fun times. And she was always had this dark cloud around her, right? And I
Right.
understand this, that some people do have some mental health
Yeah.
conditions or whatever it is, and they can't get out of their own funk. But I mean, I'm sure you've worked with people before who've come a long way. But the problem with that is they have to want to do it themselves, right? You can't force someone to live this amazing life that we think they're not living. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Absolutely. 100%. Right. You can't force someone to shatter their ego, because it's protecting them. They're not going to feel safe with that,
Yeah.
and you can plant the seeds. I always say plant the seeds for change because that's a lot easier than doing a bulldozing session about it. Plant the seeds for change. Hey, what do you think about therapy and things like that? But with the negativity, there's something in the brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And you can look up Mel Robbins. She's wonderful, and she talks about this as well. The brain filters our thoughts. So if they say the power of positive thinking. Well, it's actually true because you're training your brain, you're programming your brain which path it's going to walk because the RAS is going to prove you right. So if you start to think negatively, the RAS is going to look through points of evidence throughout your day to prove you right. So now that's why I talk about the morning positive affirmations and your night routine and stuff like that, because you want to trick your brain into doing what you want it to do for you. Really, the brain and the mind is almost like an overused sense. We rely on it too much, and we need to fall back into the heart, back into the intuition, because we get all up in our heads and we start to trigger the fight or flight response, and then now we're living in fear instead of love, and lack mindset instead of abundance mindset, and lack consciousness instead of abundance consciousness you
Yeah.
know
Wow.
so train
And
your brain.
yeah. So, I mean, let me ask for someone like yourself, and what do you recommend to people? Any tools that you use, in that we could be doing at home right now? What are the things we could do each day, each morning, each night? Yeah.
Yes, beautiful question. So, yeah, so we really want to get the brain at those times where it's most malleable, where we can really influence it. So, that's going to be right when we wake up, right when we go to sleep, when we're meditating, when our brain is in that theta wave state, things like that. So, we're going to be able to program what we want a little bit easier in there. So, you can wake up and you can have a gratitude journal, right? Think three things that you're grateful for. Um, you can, pray in the morning and things like that. I listen to positive affirmations a lot, and you don't even have to be consciously aware of what the affirmations are saying. They're going in there subliminally, even if you're not totally listening to them. So right when you get up, positive affirmations, listening to music that's uplifting. We were talking about diamonds last time. Diamonds
Hmm.
are born under pressure. So there's this immense pressure in life that life gives us with this ego and all the things. And then it kind of like bursts and shatters the ego, and this beautiful diamond comes out because we're polishing our diamonds, you know? So
Hmm.
we really want to be able to have these healthy habits once again that we're going to use to reprogram how we're thinking, how
Yeah.
we're feeling, how we're doing things.
Yeah.
So yes, yes. So doing all of that and finding what works for you. Try different things. You know, I didn't say it last time, but volunteering. Volunteering is such a great way to give back and to nourish the soul as well, and to make connections in the community as well. You know, it's a selfless thing, but it's also very self-rewarding. So that's something really good that we can do. You know, and I didn't also meant to mention this in the last podcast with the parenting skills. You know, as your kids are growing up, it's very important to have them evaluated. Each state or region, find out where your early intervention services are and make sure your children are evaluated through that if there's some type of developmental delay or something. And then through the school district, if there's something going on, they can be evaluated through the school district as well when they get older to make sure that they're having the different services they need, because we want them to have a healthy ego. We don't
Yeah.
want them to feel like there's something wrong with them and not have the maybe the support that we could have given them that we didn't give them during a very crucial state in development. So that's also very important in them, their development, and them developing a healthy ego and educating them and things like that, you
Oh,
know.
well, thank you. And we are just about out of time. Before we go, I just also want people to realize that you just innately have always wanted to help people. I remember that about you. And clearly you still are here helping so many people change. And,
Yeah.
overall advice, it's like you want people to believe in themselves. And again, with so many different mindfulness techniques, meditation, I mean, on the
Yes.
mental health sides, the Reiki therapy side, you really do a lot and can help someone, even with the what was it called? The CBT, the cognitive, what was that?
Cognitive behavioral therapy. Yep,
That's also
CBT.
another therapy. What is that again? Explain that quick.
That is how our thoughts affect our emotions and affect our behaviors. And if we can shift from irrational, unhealthy thoughts to rational, healthy thinking by reprogramming the way we're thinking, then we can have healthy emotions, healthy behaviors. So it's a whole transformation of the way we think. So you're utilizing the science of the brain, that neuroplasticity, to walk a new path in the brain that's going to be healthier, right? Utilizing that RAS, the reticular activating system, to focus on what's healthy, focus on your strengths and things like that, you know. And so just a couple more things before we go. There's
Yeah.
also a book called The Four Agreements that I would recommend to everyone. My fiance recommended it to me. I recommend it to everyone. It's called The Four Agreements. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. And it talks about things like not taking it personal, not making assumptions, and things like this. Read the book. It's a tiny book. Maybe listen to the audiobook, things like that. That helped me a lot reprogram the way I think, because I ran it through the filter of this type of thinking mindset. And it really helps and it challenges us a lot, right? Because we kind of take things personally and we judge people and all the things. But you know, getting back into being yourself and believing in yourself. And it's very important because we want to stay connected to the divine and not feel separated and alone per se, because there's unity consciousness. We want to tap into how we're all connected with each other and bring unity consciousness and bring love and peace to the world through our unity consciousness. This is why we want to tap into that self-actualization, that top of the hierarchy there, you know, the hierarchy
Beautiful.
of
Yeah.
needs. So we can tap into our higher selves and tap into the connection with each other and lift up, raise the spiritual awareness, get this spiritual awakening going, and raise the consciousness of the world and of the earth as well,
Thank
because
you.
earth is going through an ego death too, and we're revealing our heart chakras,
Wow.
and that's all about love and not fear. So let's dip back into the heart and into the intuition and into loving ourselves, and we can find the way.
Thank you so much. How can we contact you, sweetheart?
Yes, energywisewellness.com is my website. You can also reach me at energywisewellness@gmail.com. I'm on Psychology Today. All the information is there. I give a free 15-minute consultation if you just want to talk about a direction to go into. For the mental health therapy side, it's just in New York, but for the Reiki, I do the telehealth everywhere. So, yeah, reach out if you feel that this resonates with you and if you're called to.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you back. And hopefully we will chat again next week. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again for this.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners and viewers, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.